U.S. airfares are up 7.1% year over year. In that same stretch, load factors have fallen for 10 consecutive months. Families are spending hundreds more per trip and still boarding flights lined with empty seats. If planes aren't full, why aren't prices dropping? Because 4 airlines now control 75% of the market. And what comes next explains why they'll never have to compete on price again. Between 2008 and 2013, the U.S. airline industry underwent a transformation that would define the market for decades. 3 mega mergers, Delta with Northwest, United with Continental, and American with U.S. Airways, collapsed 8 legacy carriers into just 4 giants. Today, American, Delta, United, and Southwest command roughly 75% of all domestic passengers. Department of Transportation market share tables show these 4 not only dominate the skies, but also hold the reins at the nation's airports. At 40 of the 100 largest U.S. airports, a single airline controls the majority of seats. In another 53, just 2 carriers split the field, leaving only a handful of airports with any real competition. This is not just an academic exercise in market structure. For the average traveler, it means fewer choices and little incentive for airlines to compete on price. A Department of Justice antitrust economist puts it plainly. In a market where 4 firms can watch each other's every move, price cuts become rare and short-lived. The numbers back this up. Since consolidation, fare dispersion has narrowed and headline ticket prices have crept steadily upward. The illusion of choice remains, but behind the booking screens, the real levers of power are locked in the hands of a tiny group of companies. As a result, headline fares stay sticky, even when planes have empty rows. The consumer is left with the uncomfortable truth. The promise of competition has all but vanished from the skies. Spirit Airlines once filled a gap that the big 4 carriers refused to touch. In November 2024, the airline filed for bankruptcy protection, citing an unsustainable debt load and mounting losses that reached $2.5 billion since 2020. Pilots and crew were furloughed by the hundreds as Spirit slashed a quarter of its summer schedule, pulling out of dozens of cities and shrinking its network by more than 300 routes. By August 2025, a second bankruptcy filing confirmed what many in the industry already suspected. The era of true ultra-low-cost flying in the U.S. was over. For travelers, the loss was immediate and personal. One former Spirit pilot, grounded after the August announcement, described the sudden emptiness of airports that once buzzed with budget flyers, families, students, and workers who relied on $39 tickets to visit relatives or chase job opportunities. Without Spirit, those seats simply vanished. The vacuum only deepened when the Department of Justice blocked JetBlue's proposed merger with Spirit in early 2024, arguing that the deal would erase the last major source of price pressure in dozens of markets. Instead of a rescue, the block left a gaping hole. Low-fare capacity collapsed, and the Big 4 gained the freedom to set prices with even less fear of undercutting. Behind every empty seat and canceled route lies a story of lost access. With the discount segment gutted, airlines no longer need to fill planes to the brim or tempt flyers with last-minute deals. The market's watchdog has left the tarmac, and passengers are left to pay whatever the remaining carriers demand. Every traveler has felt the sting. You click through to book a flight lured by a headline fare, and by the time you reach the checkout page, the price has ballooned. What began as a $199 ticket now costs $320. And that is before you have even picked a seat or checked a bag. This is not a glitch or a one-off. It is the result of a deliberate strategy that has turned airlines into unbundling machines, slicing the flying experience into a menu of fees and surcharges. The numbers are staggering. In 2024, airlines worldwide raked in $148 billion from ancillary fees, according to IATA. That is not a typo. It accounted for 15 to 16% of their total revenue. Just a decade ago, that share was barely half as large. United Airlines alone pulled in $1.3 billion last year from seat selection fees. That is more than some airlines make from their entire baggage operations. To see how this plays out for the average flyer, consider a real booking. A pricing analyst at a major consumer advocacy group ran a search for a cross-country trip. The base fare looked reasonable, but the moment she tried to select a standard aisle seat, $48 was added. A checked bag added $35 each way. Want to board before Group 9? That is $25 more. By the time all the so-called extras were tallied, the final price was 60% higher than the advertised fare. And none of these were luxury upgrades. They were simply the basics that used to come standard. As the analyst puts it, the ticket price is a lie. The real cost is hidden behind a wall of fees, and airlines are counting on most people not to notice until it is too late. For the traveler, this means the pain of rising fares is only half the story. The other half is death by 1,000 cuts, engineered into every step of the booking process. Step onto a domestic flight in 2026, and the physical cost of a cheap seat hits before the wheels even leave the ground. What used to pass for standard economy, 35 inches of seat pitch in the 1980s, has shrunk to just 30 or 31 inches today. Some carriers squeeze that further, dropping to 28. The space between rows is so tight that knees graze the tray table, elbows knock with neighbors, and there is barely room to shift, let alone relax. For taller travelers, the discomfort is immediate and relentless, a constant reminder that the bargain fare came with a hidden price, personal space. This is not an accident or a fleeting experiment. Airlines have spent years reconfiguring cabins, packing more seats into every fuselage, and stripping away padding to make every row count. The result is a flying experience that feels more like a test of endurance than a service. But for those willing to pay, there is a way out. Premium economy, once a niche product, now claims up to 20% of all economy sales, up from 16% just a year prior. The difference is a few extra inches of legroom, a slightly wider seat, and the illusion of dignity restored for a fee that often runs into the hundreds. Executives do not hide the strategy. In quarterly calls, Delta and Lufthansa describe premium economy as their most profitable cabin. Virgin Atlantic's chief executive calls it the sweet spot for margins. The numbers back them up. Airlines have engineered discomfort in standard economy to drive flyers into higher-priced seats. The profit motive is clear. The average traveler, meanwhile, is left to choose between enduring a shrunken seat or paying up for relief. For many, it is not a choice at all. It is an unavoidable squeeze, engineered by design. Aircraft manufacturers are sitting on a backlog of more than 17,000 jets, an order book so swollen it equals about 60% of the world's active fleet. Boeing managed just 348 deliveries last year, far short of its own targets, hamstrung by safety investigations, production caps, and ongoing quality problems. Airbus fared better but still missed its goals. Meanwhile, a global recall of Pratt & Whitney's PW1000G engine has forced airlines to ground between 500 and 835 planes, with each engine fix stretching close to 300 days. The result? Airlines can't grow even if they want to. New routes, extra frequencies, or bigger planes are off the table. Aging jets meant for retirement are pressed back into service. Fuel costs have turned into a second hammer. Jet fuel on the Gulf Coast spiked to $4.12 a gallon in early March, levels not seen since the 2008 crisis. For airlines, that means fuel eats up as much as 30% of every dollar earned. Southwest, once famous for hedging, now faces a $2.7 billion hit after abandoning its fuel protection strategy. The math is simple: higher costs, fewer planes, and no slack in the system. A fleet operations analyst puts it bluntly: when you have 17,000 jets on back order and hundreds grounded, you can't add seats, no matter what demand looks like. The only lever left is price. For passengers, this rigidity means empty seats don't translate into cheaper fares. Instead, the system locks in high prices, even as planes fly half full. Household budgets are buckling under the weight of airfare inflation. Survey data from early 2026 show that 1 in 3 American families has cut back on at least one trip this year, sometimes canceling altogether, sometimes piling into a car for a road trip instead. The pain is not just at the checkout screen. It's in missed graduations, skipped reunions, and job interviews that never happen because the ticket cost is out of reach. A consumer advocate lays out the reality. You can't outsmart the system, but you can keep more money in your pocket. 4 strategies stand out. First, book midweek flights and avoid peak travel days. Fares can drop by as much as 20%. Second, use fare alerts and flexible search tools to spot price dips before they vanish. Third, travel light. Checked bag fees now average $35 each way, so a carry-on saves real cash. Fourth, always review the final price breakdown before you click buy. Hidden fees are the new normal. But household hacks can only go so far. 3 questions demand answers from policymakers. Why are 4 airlines allowed to control 3/4 of the market? What protections exist against deceptive fee practices? And when will competition, not just profit margins, return to the skies? The advocate's message is blunt. If we don't demand change, this broken system will keep squeezing travelers until only the wealthy can afford to fly. It's time to push back for our wallets and for the future of affordable air travel. Airline seats go unfilled, but fares keep rising. For passengers, the ticket price is a shell game. Fees multiply, comfort shrinks, and real competition fades. This isn't just inflation, it's a rigged system. Until that changes, travelers pay more for less, trapped in the middle. What is your take?